Hi everybody and welcome back. My name's Alison, the online piano and the online violin tutor. Today is a violin comparison video and it is between the Cecilio CVN400 and the Cecilio CVN500. I've done independent reviews on both of these violins as well as pretty much all of the violins that the Cecilio have in their entire range, and they'll be in the description bar directly down below underneath this video. So these two violins are roughly, obviously at the time of making this video, the CVN400 on Amazon.com is around about $160, something like that. The links if you want to buy these on Amazon.com are going to be directly down below this video as well, so click there. The 500 is roughly about $200, so you've got a $40 difference. Looks wise, this one has like a shiny varnish finish. This one has a satin finish. They've both got maple back and sides. They've both got the Dario Prelude strings, which come as standard, and they've both got nickel plated fine tuners. I suppose the only real difference is that the 400 is slightly orangier in colour than this one. This one, it actually says it says on the Cecilio website that it's a satin finish varnish, but this one is a satin finish varnish because you can tell that it's sort of not matte in a way, but just a satin, whereas this would be, I suppose, like a gloss varnish. So I mean, that doesn't really make a huge amount of difference, just depends, you know, what you like the look of really. But individually they're both really nice looking instruments. The only other difference is that this one is all ebony fitted accessories, i.e. the chin rest, the tailpiece, the fingerboard and the pegs, and this one has boxwood pegs, the boxwood tailpiece and the boxwood chin rest. It has a fingerly an ebony fingerboard as well. I'll start talking properly in a second. So it just depends if you like the combination of the wood or not. I'm not so keen on the boxwood stuff. I do prefer the black ebony stuff, but I mean, in terms of difference and taste testing and everything, it doesn't really sort of come into it. So what I'm going to do is play them back to back now. I'm going to play the same piece of music back to back, the 400 first, then the 500. So hopefully my microphone will give you some idea in difference of sound, and then I shall go through some pros and cons of each, my opinion and the summary. Performances of Gypsy Firelight from my violin book on the CVN400 and the 500. The main differences in sound, I suppose, starting with the 500, it seems a lot deeper. It's really difficult to describe the sound. This one, I suppose, sounds a lot brighter. This one sounds a lot deeper. There isn't really a huge amount of difference, I don't think, in the sound. I'm really not sure how much the microphone is picking up, but it's certainly not going to be picking up as much as I'm going to be picking up in the room and also playing it, you know, where my ears are picking up exactly what I'm playing as well. But considering that, I would say out of the entire range, the Cecilio range starts from the CVN100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700 and 800 being their premier kind of violin. I would say that the 100, 200, 300 are in a kind of a nice little bracket to themselves. The 4 and the 500, which are these two, are in a kind of a little bracket to themselves, which are, I'd say, like, you know, the intermediate violins. And then the 6, 700 and 800 are the advanced violins, with obviously the 6 being the lower end of the advanced and the 8 being the higher end of the advanced. These ones sit pretty much slap bang in the middle. Because they sit in the middle, I really wouldn't say that the 500 is better than the 400. I'd say the 4 and 500 are better than the 100, 200, 300, obviously, and they're a lot better, if you kind of see what I'm getting at. And they're certainly not as good as the 6, 7 or 800. But in terms of the 4 and 500, which we're reviewing against each other today, I'd say there's really not a lot of difference. These are ideal for intermediate players, so they're great if you're upgrading from a 100 to 200 or a similar branded violin, and you've just got their student quality and you want to upgrade. These are nice instruments for that. I suppose instead of talking about any cons, my personal preference would probably be towards the 400. There's about a $40 difference roughly, depending on when you're looking on Amazon.com. I suppose after what I've played, comparing the two together side by side, if I have to pick one, I would probably pick the 400 over the 500. There isn't really an awful lot of difference in price. They've both got a similar sort of looking finish to them. They've both got a really nice high-end finish, so there isn't kind of scrappy bits hanging off here and there, or you know, the varnish has been missed off a little bit here, and you know what I mean, with little bits that you get with the cheaper end violins, where perhaps the peg box doesn't look quite so finished, and you know, things are a little bit wonky and that kind of thing, which is fine and acceptable because you're only paying sort of $100 or less for those sorts of violins. So you don't expect an awful lot apart from a violin to work for you. When you're paying, you know, $200 and upwards-ish, then you expect the actual instrument to be a lot nicer. So they both have a similar sort of finish. I prefer the bridge of the 400 for some reason than the bridge of the 500, although I think they should be pretty much identical, but for me, I mean, it could just be the one I've got. For me, I prefer the 400 for that. They've both got D'Addario Prelude strings, they've both got nickel-plated fine tuners, so there really isn't an awful lot of difference, but my personal opinion is to save yourself $40 and go with a 400 if you're kind of umming and ahhing between the 4 and the 500. The 500 is a nice instrument on its own, don't get me wrong, and if you've got the money, then you can buy the 500. But just personally for me, I just prefer the sound of the 400 just because it's a lot brighter. I said on the individual review with the 500 though, because you might be thinking, well, what's the point of having the 500? In that I think if you had a better set of strings, the D'Addario Prelude strings are good strings, but you can get some more advanced strings out there. Obviously it means paying a lot more money, but sometimes it is good, or it is better to buy a set of strings for a little bit more money than putting more money to it and getting a better violin. You're not necessarily going to be getting something better. You could just have a really nice violin, you put a really nice set of strings on, and you've got a great combination, as opposed to buying the next violin up, if that's going to make sense. So the sound might mature a little bit more on here if you've got some nicer strings, and once you've played it in, then possibly what you're going to get from the 400. But from face value, I think that the 400, if I had to choose, would be the best one to get. So that's just my opinion on those. You know, try it out for yourselves and everything. Have a look at the individual reviews underneath the videos. I've done some more versus reviews and all that kind of good stuff. And thanks very much for watching. Subscribe, thumbs up, and I'll see you in the next video.